Today, we will be hearing from not one, but two stories of two different people, both extremely interesting, I promise you that. We'll be talking about not only music and technology and disruption and where it's all headed, but also about investing, especially music, and what is the music industry doing and going to do about it. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming two very special guests. Matus Maar, the managing partner of Talis Capital. And Matus will be joined by Borrie, the CEO and founder of Pirate Studios. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's start with you, Matus. You are from a company which is less known, but more impressive that we usually have on this stage. We've hosted so far maybe 10, 15 venture capital companies on this stage. And Talis Capital is here for the first time. Talis has invested over 500 million so far, so congrats, it's impressive. And you have great companies. Let's start with your story. How did you get to be an investor?
I think, like everything in life, it's mostly an accident. So I was at the university in Manchester, and I worked over the summer for a guy who is one of the biggest deal maker over there, and he just raised a fund, listed fund, just when I finished, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I just raised a fund. It's two of us. We need actually some junior guys to do some work." And I thought, wow, that's probably a good opportunity to get some exposure to this market. And so I came there. It was great. We did a lot of deals. We worked on a lot of deals that didn't complete. So all the right experience that you really want to in terms of investment. And then it was in Manchester, but my story is I speak 5 languages, grew up in 4 countries, and I love technology. And I was kind of in Manchester doing mostly regional stuff, not really technology. And so I decided to leave because I wanted to go to London, where most of the startup scene definitely back then was, and that was sort of 10 years ago.
So this is 2009, and it's right in the middle of the crisis, right? So how do you get to raise a new fund when the money is short on the market?
So again, pure accident. It was just after the crisis, and there's a family that decided, our first investors who decided that they want to set up a family office and put together a team that they would invest their money on behalf. And that was because after crisis, for some reason, probably a luck and a little bit of knowledge as well, they were on the right side of the dollar and they actually didn't lose money. But a lot of their friends did lose money. They have money in banks that they thought they owned some assets and they didn't own at the end. And so they decided, well, we want to make direct investments ourselves and we want to have a good team for it. And that's how we really started. So we are 2 partners at Talis, actually 3 partners together with the main founder as well. And both me and Vasily joined in 2009. They first approached Vasily, who they knew, and then they hired me. And then very quickly we told them, look, I know you don't know anything about technology. These guys were from commodity trading background, super successful, largest commodity trader in the world, and super successful entrepreneurs, but they didn't know much about technology. And we told them, look, and you want us to make investments for long term and things that are not going to just, you want to hold some things for long term or whatever length of time. You have to invest in things that are going to be technology leveraged. I'm not going to tell them to invest in, some new Facebook straight away or something like that, but it has to be technology leveraged. Otherwise, it will die.
Yeah.
It took us some time, but we convinced them, and it's surely for the best. And we done some good deals early on, and suddenly some of their friends wanted to invest with us. And so we realized that there is a lot of people who are very successful and similar to them, first generation, ultra high net worth, ultra successful entrepreneurs from various industries. And so we decided, well, this is actually quite interesting. Most of the VCs were taking money from institutions. And we decided to go the path where we are now, which is 22 different LPs. They're all individuals or families, first generation, ultra high net worth, ultra successful. And with them comes amazing network that we, use, and we expose our startups into it, and they make some amazing introductions, and it's a great environment.
It's a very smart strategy to invest ultra high net worth money as a family office, as a VC. How does your network, when you invest the money, help the companies?
I mean, we have endless examples, and when we led the Series A for Darktrace in 2015, which is it's a cybersecurity company, which has done very well, and it's a unicorn now. When we first invested, it was in March 2015. Very quickly, we made the introduction to this commodity trading company and a couple of other ones. And, it was obviously great product, and they made multi-million enterprise sale with that commodity trader 1 month after we invested. 3 months later, Summit led the Series B because suddenly the company had 80% growth in ARR. So, there's other companies that we invested in, and, we talk about, I don't know, Onfido or any other. We always go to the network and say, well, we just invested your money into this. And the first reaction is, oh, that's interesting because my mate Fred from Betfred could really use that. And these really high quality personal introductions really help the startups. Most of the institutional investors can introduce other VCs, or they can introduce maybe other portfolio companies, but they don't have many quality contracts actually in the big companies that will be buying these services. So I think that works really well.
Okay, so you don't really worry about money because money is in your fund. You don't do fundraising so much, so you can focus on the company building. How hands-on or hands-off are you when you're helping your companies?
So another great thing about having not institutional money is that we can be very flexible with what we do. If we decide that we want to actually set up a company and incubate it, we can do that. Although, we focus really on a late seed, Series A and Series B, sort of 1 to 10 million ticket, very focused venture capital program. If we see something that is super interesting, and it doesn't exist, and we've got some people that we think that can run it or can and do something with it, we can absolutely do that. I mean, it's probably part of the story with Pirate, which is we backed it from very first concept and actually kind of helped with building the business model, everything. We can do that, as well as we can just go and back the Series A, Series B company.
Yeah. What's impressive is, so you came here from Manchester. Now you had to build your own network. And I think when we met for the first time, it was like Bloomberg. Was it the Croatian president or some VC?
Something like that, yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah. So you have a very good network in London. Now you're helping your companies do that, have good network and benefit from that. When you look at your portfolio, which companies do you think are going to be companies which are really great technology which we should know about? Apart from Pirate, because we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, that's the best one. So it's difficult because we have companies that we obviously think all of them. The reason why we invest in them, we think all of them will be amazing and do great things. And all of them are at different stages, and some companies go really fast, really quickly, and really big, really fast. But some companies take some time. So there's endless things, but obviously Onfido is doing really well. Darktrace is already there, but just keep growing. Luminance, which is AI for legal services, is also doing fantastic and onboarding now hundreds of law firms. We have truly been lucky with about 40 companies that we have got into some incredible deals. Close Match, which is a very interesting startup here in London. We did that with Index. So I don't want to pick just a couple. I mean, today we had a great announcement about a company that I'm very excited about. We just did, and we led their $20 million seed round, which is
That's a big seed round.
fairly large. It's called Oh My Green. You probably saw it today on a couple of media. So they're based originally a German guy who went to Stanford, started a business which is in corporate wellness, actually installs micro kitchens, something like this, but build it all on the tech stack, where you put all the suppliers into the tech stack, you put all the warehousing in the tech stack, you put all the deliveries in the tech stack, and it goes all the way up to the actual physical installation, and then the F&B manager for the building. And they're servicing all the Lyft headquarters in US and other things like that. So, set up just, I think, 3 years ago, went through Y Combinator, and now growing like crazy. So, it's a very, very exciting company.
How did you find them?
As you said, it's a network thing. So we obviously don't have, this company is based in the Valley. We don't have a Valley office, but it's a network thing. So, we have a bunch of people.
Your friends bring it.
Yeah, we have a bunch of people that we really rate, and for some reason they rate us back, and then we introduce each other companies, and we like to do things together. I like to work with Eric Archambault, who is sort of ex-Benchmark in Wellington, Bart Swanson from Horizons. Yeah. This one was from Andre at Backed VC, which is, young people's VC here in London, very exciting. They're doing cool stuff. We're together, part based in Secondhome as well. So that's interesting.
Yeah, Secondhome. Last time we've met was in Secondhome, and you're showing some of the companies which are based there, which you invested in. And one of them, in particular, really caught my attention because you said they have a totally unique business model. They have a chat e-commerce, right?
Yeah, chat-based commerce, as they call it. It's called
How does it
Threads.
work?
Yeah. It is very unique. It's a company that is in tens of millions of revenue, yet have never spent a penny on marketing. That is because they have a very unique business model where they are, in one instance, they are influencers. They create shoppable Instagram stories, 100 different every day, which creates a huge following, and then you can shop them all, and then when you shop it, you don't shop it through a website, you shop it through a chat. So in China, they sell it through WeChat. In here, it's mostly, and Middle East is WhatsApp and iMessage in US. And it creates really personal experiences for really what you need for a luxury fashion and jewelry and
they call
products.
Threads.
They call Threads.
I'm gonna check it out. Maybe I'll buy something from them. Now, if you have any questions to any of our guests here, feel free to ask. And what you do is super simple. You just open your browser on your mobile. No need to download any app. Open the browser and type in slido.com. And it's that simple. And the hashtag today, as you can see on these banners, is SG Europe. And you just ask away. No need to log in or sign up, you just ask away. And I can promise you the top 5 questions will be answered, maybe more. And which ones you will decide, because you can vote for questions you want us to ask. And we will. So feel free to ask and type in the questions. Now we will be transitioning our conversation into the music industry, because this is what is exciting, and we want to see that. How did you, Matus, come across Pirates, and what's the story behind you guys meeting?
Yeah, it's interesting, and again, as everything in life, I think, it's a bit of an accident, but me and David were part of a similar friendship group, and we were once about 3.5 years ago in Paris at a friend's birthday weekend, which was, you know, like here we're drinking and started talking about, you know what David was doing before he was working for a bank, and he told me about this. Oh yeah, I've got some, you know, music rehearsal studios. I'm like, what is that? Is it, you mean like a recording studio? And I had all these stupid questions that, you know, that I didn't really know what it was. And then, I mean, I'll let him to tell the story, but it turned out that if you merge some actually technology that is out there and it's been in Zipcar and etc., but also some very interesting high technology for music-related technology, you can create from what the concept was there to what it is today, and autonomous rehearsal studios. And so it was, you know, we then came back and talked more and built the first business model and realized that, you know what, this looks actually like a great business.
Yeah.
And we couldn't believe it didn't exist. There is, you know, no network or brand in this space in the world. And so we decided, you know, Talis, we decided that this is great. It's very early. It's a concept stage. We don't usually do that.
Okay.
But let's do that because it sounds great. And, you know, for some reason we thought David was great. And
so let's find out how great David is. Now we'll talk about the story of Pirate, David, with you. But before we do that, let's have a look at a short video about what Pirate actually does.
Take two.
Let me tell you what you want to know about me. Make I tell you what you want to know. True. Make I tell you how the world go through. Training, weaning, feeding, fanning.
Yo, what's going on, bro? Yeah, let's do this, man. You boys ready to hit the studio then? Yeah.
And move like a sket anyway. When it's time to drop, I'm not just the elephant in the room, blood. I'm the bull in this China shop. I'm the force that they try to stop. I'm the force that they try to drop. Trust me, they've been trying a lot. Yeah, they tried a lot, but
no cash, talk on the tap. Pick it up, there you go. Pick it up, oh no. Bad hash, talk trash. White noise disturbance flash.
told me
Okay. Now, Buyer Studios. David, how did you discover there's this niche on the market, and why did you decide to go for it?
Can everyone hear me, by the way? Yep, perfect. Okay. So yeah, Pirate Studios, I'm not going to lie, it was born out of a complete accident. So I was, as Matthias kindly pointed out, in banking beforehand. I was in the exciting world of designing current accounts. Yep, as exciting as it sounds. On the side, I was a drummer. So I was in a band, kind of in and out of bands for about 6-7 years. Eventually, I decided that me and my band should get our own studio. I managed to convince them, and I managed to find a little hut in an abandoned police station in Bristol. Anyway, as with all bands, after about 6 weeks of us having this studio, the band split up. I had a 2-year lease on a studio that I couldn't pay for myself, and so I decided to timeshare it. And I got my other co-founder, Mikey, to build a load of lockers. And basically, one band had it every Monday daytime, one band had it every Wednesday evening, and I rented out 14 slots in the week. Anyway, I then decided to move to London and chase my now wife, which was obviously successful. And this whole idea of self-service studios was born because actually, I started managing this timeshare studio from London. Around about this time, I had the fortune to bump into Matthias in a late night bar in Paris, and I was talking to him about this studio I had, and I was kind of going through the idea and saying, look, at the moment, there's only a certain amount of bands who want to practice every Monday daytime. I can't cater for the guys who just want to book a 3-hour slot here or any of this. So there's 95% of the market untapped here. If I could just find a way that I could tap into these bands, then, we could open up this thing worldwide. At which point, he pointed out the likes of Pure Gym and Zipcar and some of these other industries are actually already doing it. And, with many drunken conversations, you kind of wake up the next morning and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. But, this conversation is never going to go anywhere. Anyway, I had a text on my phone from Matthias. I was like, oh, wow, okay, this guy's interested, okay. And we started talking, and obviously him and Talis then decided they would like to put a little bit of seed money behind it. And so we utilized industries like Pure Gym and other kind of self-service industries, and we took that kind of code lock technology model and we applied it to music studios.
Do you guys know what Cobalt is? Raise your hand if you've heard of Cobalt Music. Do you want to explain what it is, the Cobalt model?
Cobalt,
yeah.
As in the distribution service?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously there's a big push towards DIY at the moment in music. So bands will, go to a recording studio, they'll record a tune, but then the question is, how do they get it on all of these streaming platforms? Your Apple Musics, your Spotifys, your Deezers, and that's what companies like Cobalt offer. So you can actually put your songs in for either a monthly fee or an annual fee or a small percentage of your song, and they will then actually put it on all of the streaming platforms for you and make your music available to the general public.
Yeah, it's a very, very good model, and it's totally disrupting because it's real time, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and so you took some seed money from Talis, and how did you spend it at first?
Wildly at first. We took wisely. That was the word I was looking for, actually. Yeah. We took the seed money. We had a little bit of experience of what we were doing. So my other co-founder, Mikey, he's a carpenter, joiner, stroke acoustic engineer. So he's the real brains of the business. So he knew how to build these studios. I told him I knew how to market them. I'm not sure I necessarily did, but we utilized the seed money to build a 6-studio base in Bristol. So much bigger than anything we'd done before. And 6 months after raising the seed, we launched our first studios in Bristol. We were very lucky in that the self-service concept went really well. In Bristol, musicians were surprisingly respectful of the studios for ones that are completely unmanned, and that's how we came to be where we are today.
We have a question here on Slido, and the question is, if you have any tips on finding a technology co-founder or a partner for your company, how did you find yours?
A technology co-founder?
Or a co-founder overall?
The same way I met Matthias, actually. I'm not going to lie, it was drunk in a bar.
So yeah, that's your secret.
Promote going out more. Go out there, get social. But yeah, I was introduced to Mikey through another mutual friend in Bristol.
Uh-huh.
As anyone who's been to Bristol will probably know, I mean, there's a lot of musicians in Bristol. Pretty much everyone you meet will either be a DJ, a producer, be in some sort of band. There's a strong music community there. And obviously a kind of strong local network of musicians builds through that. And I met Mikey. He was a DJ and a pianist at the time, kind of through that music network.
Yes, so that's your tip for finding a co-founder. Now, you had your seed money, and then you were expanding the model, and you discovered this niche is totally unserved. And what confirmed your decision of going after this market? Did you see people complaining about not finding a studio, or how did you decide to go for that?
So how many people here have played in a rehearsal studio?
A few, okay.
Okay, that's decent. So in terms of your experience, how well soundproofed would you say the rehearsal studios were? How many of you could hear bag covers of Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit" playing in next door's room? Probably quite a few. So,
okay.
I mean, there are lots of studios out there. Some of them do a very, very good job, but they tend to be on the more expensive side. A lot of them tend to just be rooms. They're not well soundproofed. They're not well sound treated. The equipment's battered. If you're really lucky, you get someone else's sweat dripping off the ceiling. I mean, they can be pretty unpleasant places to be. And me, Mikey, we'd spent 7 years in and out of rehearsal studios. And so our passion was to try and build something of a higher quality, but much cheaper, which is what the self-service model was able to do for us.
Yeah, and you already scaled. So in how many studios do you have right now?
So we have 300 studios across about 20 locations.
That's impressive. 300 studios. It's a big number. Congrats. How do you balance the need for funding of opening up these studios with the need to expand? How do you choose your priorities?
How do we choose our priorities? I mean, it's a delicate balance. So obviously there's quite a lot of research and development that goes into the studios. So we are quite unique in that we build all of the studios ourselves. The other co-founder, apart from Matthias, Mikey, he concentrates on all of that studio R&D. So obviously quite a lot of money goes into that. But we also have this technology platform that sits in Pirate Studios where people can record audio, they can video what's happening in the studio, they can also live stream. And so a significant amount of investment goes into technology, and then we also have the cost of building the studios. And to be honest with you, it's a fine balance which we often get wrong, and quite often we get bailed out by Matthias here for finding us some more funding. So, but yeah, I mean, it's trial and error, to be honest with you. You know, whenever you're starting a company, it's very, very difficult to estimate well just how much money you need to put into the research and development and the technology that you want to put into your business. And so, you know, it's very, I say it's prudent to be careful in terms of what you plan and how far your money's going to go.
That's
and,
correct,
you know, being
we have another question here on Slido regarding, you know, when you launching and expanding to so many studios, 300 is a big number. The question here is on Slido from Lisa. What was the most effective marketing strategy you used for the launch of Pirate Studios in cities across the UK?
The most effective strategy we used, we actually copied Flatiron, the restaurant chain. So I once saw a queue down the street in Shoreditch, and I couldn't work out where it was leading to. And I followed this queue, and I saw it was leading into a Flatiron restaurant. And so I started to ask people in the queue why, and it turned out they basically opened their doors and they told people it was free. So it was free steaks, and people could just come in and grab it. And this was probably about our 6th or 7th city, and then me and our head of marketing sat down and said, well, actually, do you know what? We spend all of this money on marketing and pre-marketing. Maybe we could save some of that and just make the studios free. First 2 weeks of opening, just open the doors. Whoever wants to come in, use the studios, check them out, see if it suits them. We just make it completely free. And since that, I think for the remaining 13 cities, we've always done that.
Okay. Now, when you work with investors, you know, some of them like to be very hands-on, some of them would like to be less hands-on. How much do you? What is the best way of you using Talis Capital for resources, for example? How much do you guys talk together? Because Matus, you are executive chairman, right, of the company?
I mean, literally every day. So I mean, it's,
Every day. Wow.
I mean, Matthias obviously, has a very hands-on role in this business, being one of the co-founders. We were very lucky. I mean, neither myself nor Mikey had ever really ventured into any kind of business on our own before. And, one of the big advantages of working with a VC such as Talis, especially one that likes to be so hands-on, is they identify to you all of the pitfalls that other companies have been through, all of the mistakes that they've made, and things that you can hopefully avoid yourself by actually listening to them.
Yeah. And when it comes to technology, what have you guys learned not to do when you look at competition or other technology companies for your studios? Like you deciding on what technology to put in your studios, right?
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson we've learned with regards to technology is label it beta and just get it out.
Oh, wow.
Don't worry about getting everything perfect before you launch it. When you're a founder, you kind of have this idea of being Steve Jobs, and you're going to make everything perfect. Your design's going to be incredible, and this product goes to market. The first time it's seen, it's going to be absolutely amazing. Actually, with us, we can learn so much more from what our customers tell us about our early versions of a product and make them so much better by doing that than trying to design them and make sure they're going to be perfect for customers without engaging them. So my advice would be, even, if the technology's there and you've built it, as long as you can package it up in some way, get it out there, get your customers feeding back on it.
So label it beta and get it out. I love it. That's super smart.
That's the way we've
Matus,
done it.
as an investor, you must be super busy. How do you find time to speak and discuss Pirates every day?
Well, it's obviously we choose which companies we're hands-on and which companies it's typical, more of a typical venture capital. This one is kind of unique because we funded it from very beginning and we're involved every day. And it's not just me, my colleague Matthew, who spends and come and helps a lot of structuring and a lot of other things. So here we really feel as Pirate is part of us, and we've been on this journey and on a daily journey from beginning 3.5 years ago. And so there's not that many companies that we would spend that much time. Very little, to be honest.
So
but
it's a special company.
It helps, and it's for us it's fantastic because you don't learn more as a VC than actually being operational. And most of people either bear operational and then become VCs, or VCs go and be operational and then come back to VC or something. We are very lucky that, again, because of our LP base, that we can do things quite flexibly. So we can do that, and we could not only seed but concept fund, seed fund, and Series A, and all of that for Pirate. And so yeah, we can do that, and it's super helpful for our other investments because only by doing you're learning, and hands-on doing, rather than just going every 3 months to a board meeting where the founder would be, hey, everything's fantastic, blah blah blah, or just tells you the very curated problems that they decide to. It's much better when you're actually there on every day and you see the small things, and and hopefully it's also helpful to them. Definitely helpful for us.
Do you find it harder to work on a company like Pirate, since it's a company for artists, than a usual business company?
No, it's great. I mean, the culture that David has created really in Pirate it's outstanding. The work that everyone who is there, they are real pirates, as they call themselves. It's really, everyone gives their best, and it's very easy to work with them. Yes, it is in music industry. I don't claim to know the product market fit. This is all them, but it's a really fantastic business. It's a high margin, really great business that has got multiple levels of interest, from actually just the studio level to the content to the audiences to the artists and the content creation and digitalizing of all of that. So it's we all believe and can see how it can be huge on many different levels, and so it's as business, and so it's highly interesting.
David, in technology, some technology is super hard to use. Some is easier. Some is super helpful for consumers. For example, live streaming. How important is technology in your studios, and which ones are you betting on for the upcoming future?
I mean, technology is really at the heart of everything we do. So from the code locks and the disposable codes that they generate to get people into the room because there's no one there, all the way down to the content that we record, both the audio and video stuff in the room. You know, our company's built around technology because we physically have no one there on site to do the job. The stuff that we're betting on, I mean, is content. Content is king, as I'm sure most of you guys probably appreciate. You know, everyone's looking for content, and so what we're looking to do is kind of provide that eye into what happens behind the scenes for a band, because now it's no longer just about the music, it's about the people that are making the music, and you want to see the story. And that story really happens in the rehearsal studio, you know, where they're practicing week in, week out. And we want to try and provide that eye into the kind of life of a musician through that.
That's true. That's true. And how do you find these upcoming artists and the bands? How do you convince them to go from their living rooms into your studios?
We have a heavy focus on online marketing. You know, we target through most of the social channels. So we utilize Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google Ads, and YouTube. And we have a relatively even split across the 5. It started pretty heavily on Facebook, but we slowly managed to turn on the other channels. We, you know, actually decide what cities we go to and what our audience size is in those cities and how many studios to put in those cities, purely based off what those audiences are on those social channels. And so, obviously, they form the basis of our marketing as well.
Sorry. How big are other players like Spotify? I'm sorry. How important are other players like Spotify or YouTube in your portfolio? In what you're doing? So, do you see them as partners? Do you see them as competitors? Or you don't care about them at all?
No. It's fair to say I care about them. I mean, I use both of them, to be fair. They're incredibly important because they have fueled this DIY generation of musicians. And these are the kind of musicians we're looking to support.
Yeah.
So Spotify have given people, to a certain extent, the ability to get their content out there, but it's still very expensive for them to record that content. And that's, I suppose, the bit that we're trying to step into here. Similarly, on YouTube, you know, YouTube allows people to upload content that's recorded from anywhere. So with the video and the audio content that can be recorded in our studio, an obvious choice for us to get it out there is YouTube.
Yeah, you mentioned in the video that we have 50,000 bands in your community. I like the fact that you are focusing on long tail, not on the top brands and top bands in your space, because there's lots of talent out there, and pirate studios can be one of the good guys who can bring this talent to our audiences and enabling them to record in a professional level. Do you find when these bands when they grow up and do they then move away from your studios, or they still come back and they want to be part of your community?
Yeah, much like a child leaving the family home.
Yeah.
Once artists get to a certain level, they're picked up by a label. They're usually given their own studio, or they go off to find their own studio. We still have this good association with the bands. You know, we have good connections with all the bands because of the weekly live streams that we put on, the festival slots that, you know, we give to bands. We maintain a good relationship, but in terms of the actual studio usage itself, that particular relationship does tend to cease.
To move on, yeah, and you keep working on those new bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matus, when you look at technology in music, what do you think the future of music looks like? Because we've seen music in the last 10 years to be totally disrupted. And where do you think companies like Pirate Studios are adding value to the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because obviously there has been, you know, Spotify 27 billion IPO, etc., which is, you know, it's all great for the community. The way we think about it, why we think Pirate is so interesting in this ecosystem, because vertically, you know, Spotify is the king of distribution, but what do they distribute? The content they distribute, you know, there's only 3% of bands who can either afford or are signed by a label to actually create the content, right? So, and even if you look at what Spotify says, oh, we want more people, to put more artists to put their content on it, but there's a massive gap if you have to spend thousands to record one song and then hope that takes off and then save money for more, or you have to be the really creme de la creme when you signed. So what's super exciting here is, and when we first met, I was just looking at another music deal, and so we did a lot of research into music, how many musicians is there, etc., etc. There's a 420 million musicians or something like that.
Wow.
In the world, we believe we can put these studios everywhere, and really pirates can cater and let artists everywhere in the world from as early as academies. So we have academies now, schools, GCSEs, DJing is on the GCSEs now in the UK from this year for the first time. It's cool, it's super cool. And everyone wants to go, they want to try it, and they want to do it. So, Pirate really gives that 97% that they're not signed or they don't have the money to test and then try and make some content. And some of the content is really good. There is loads of other technology that we're excited about when we can help to identify how good that is or not. And yeah, it's a huge, that's great that someone, distributes it, but to create it, it's super difficult or super expensive. So
unless you have like a big audience, like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, then you can use the studios. But if you're a smaller one, then it's very hard.
Yeah, exactly.
David, how do you see the big guys in the music space to compete now? Apple Music is now Apple acquired Beats now day after Spotify with the Apple Music. What do you think is going to happen for the little bands with these moves of the fight over the world power in music?
So I think Spotify made an interesting move recently in that for the first time they're now allowing bands in quite a small beta phase to actually upload directly to Spotify.
Uh-huh.
So previously you've had to go through a distributor, a Cobalt, or one of the others that are available. Artists now can actually, to a certain extent, they can actually upload their music directly to Spotify. Now, once a massive player like Spotify does this, that puts pressure on the other players. So the Apple Musics, the Deezers, Pandoras, all of these guys then have to do the same. And all that does is then fuel this DIY generation of musicians further and give them more access to the music.
Oh, okay. What do you think, Matthias, about the big players, Apple, Spotify? Do you think Apple can still catch up with Spotify about the size of the audiences?
It's super hard to tell, to be honest. I think quite a lot of these things depend on the big label deals that these guys have made. I mean, obviously Spotify had times where not many people believe Spotify is going to make it because the deals were not that great, and then they, whipped up some great deals, and it was suddenly very good business. And then it's also about everything's about user experience, right? So I mean, this is what we spend all the time on, because we can have great marketing when we get people in there and they don't like it. They will not come back. I mean, our cohorts are amazing. People come back, they get really addicted to the product, which is amazing sign for, as a VC, these are the things that you measure the most. And not only on the physical space, but also on creating the content. They had really hooked on the fact that, hey, I can just practice and then I decide that, hey, I'm going to record. And yeah, it's super, super addictive product. And that's what we love about Pirate.
Quick show of hands, how many of you are using Spotify? Raise your hand. And how many of you are using Apple Music? Okay, 4. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the answer so far. David, what do you think about Tidal and Jay-Z's ambitions with that?
I'm not sure they've gone as well as he hoped. Yeah, I don't know. I've not heard anything from Tidal in a good long time.
Yes, it's going to be a competition between these guys. David, you mentioning the importance of the content. So content is king in your space. How much do you focus or would like to focus in the future on helping your bands getting their content out there and maybe curating the content?
So, I mean, we already do quite a lot in terms of content curation. We do the weekly live streams from artists from our community. You know, we're starting now to open that up worldwide. So we're going to be live streaming from New York, from Berlin, from London, from other cities around the UK. And we want to keep doing that. But more importantly, what we want to do with these studios is empower the artists to do their own live streams, create their own content, record their own videos, because actually the way this thing grows exponentially is if the artists do it and we don't. And that's the main aim with Pirate
And you encourage them to do it with your own technology, or you don't care whether they use Facebook live stream or some other live stream?
I think it's particularly difficult, you know, to get into the likes of social platforms. Not to say it's something that we wouldn't consider in the future, but at the moment for us, it's content creation that we're focusing on. In terms of how that content is distributed, that's something that we may focus on in the future.
Okay. Now let's go to some questions from Slido. We have some questions here. One is for you, Matthias. What are the main criteria in the valuation of a startup for Talis?
Well, I think like every VC, obviously the team and the vision. But I guess a little bit different for us is that we like to look at the business model even early on. Yeah. So you know, you look at our portfolio and we end up investing probably 2/3 in B2B companies rather than consumer. The reason for that is that a lot of the consumer companies at the startups at our entry early stage, you know, Series A, Series B, have not, you know, you can see how they can get a lot of users, but it's not so clear. I call a lot of these a paid marketing pyramid scheme where I wait until we get 100 million users and then something will change, and a lot of time does. You know, don't get me wrong,
no business model,
we are not. I guess you know, people who work for me and the people I work with and myself, we're not from background of marketing gurus and branding gurus. So we don't try to spot some kind of amazing brand just because it's a brand at the early stage. So there must be something clever like Threads or like Pirate, something that even at the early stage, actually the numbers, the unit economics, the way you acquire customers is really unique, and you can be more confident that as it scales and as people get to know the brand, it only gets better.
That's interesting. Now let's talk about it in the Pirate case. How much did you have to tweak the business model of Pirate until you were confident this is something which is going to work in the long scale?
I think it's fair to say that, to be fair, I'm still tweaking the business model for Pirate now.
So what is it today?
So, you know, we started with BAM rehearsal studios. 18 months ago, we saw a gap in the market for DJ studios.
Yeah.
6 months ago, we launched our first production studios. You know, as we grew this, we started to realize there were opportunities in the market which hadn't even been explored yet. You know, we were the first 24-hour DJ studios out there. We were the first ones to do our model of production studios. We're now looking at other kinds of studios that people need to create content. And so there's multiple opportunities out there that allow you to diversify your product range. And so in terms of the strategy, our strategy evolves almost on a kind of monthly basis. In terms of, you know, nailing it down, I suppose it's about testing it, working out what works, and then when you've got a product that's done and you're happy with it, you package it up and then you scale it. But make sure that you've still got that pipeline of product development that's happening in the background to ensure that even if products like band studios start to decline because more people become DJs, you're catering for that future market as well.
Okay. Do you plan to expand the concept to some other new markets? We have a question here from Stephen Podmore. Could this concept be expanded to film studios? Very good question.
It's an interesting one. I mean, potentially yes. I think it's kind of similar to recording studios for me in a way, and it depends on what equipment you would want to provide in there. So with film studios, typically the equipment is quite expensive. Rehearsal studios, it sounds like it might be, but actually, you know, our equipment costs are relatively cheap. Similar with DJ studios, something like film studios where you've got high-end cameras, high-end lights, and, you know, lots of equipment that needs to go in there. It becomes a much, much higher expense for us to get these studios set up. If people are bringing their own equipment and they actually just need a space, then yes, it becomes a very, very different model. But similar to why we haven't actually done full-blown recording studios, I feel like there might be a barrier to entry there, just purely with the initial cost of the equipment.
Okay. Now, next question is to both of you. Do you have a coach or a mentor? I hope you don't call Matthias a mentor, which he probably is. Yes, each other. Apart from each other.
You know, I was lucky enough 12 months ago to get introduced to a group of other CEOs. There's 6 of us, and we sit down on a monthly basis. There's varying...
Like a mastermind group?
Was I the mastermind?
Yeah. It's like a mastermind group?
No, it's not the mastermind group. It's not YPO. It's actually something that someone set up personally, who I know. And it's varying experiences. There's CEOs there who've done a couple of exits already, founders who are right at the start of their journey, and I found that incredibly useful. Just to have people in your network who are either going through the same thing you're going through or have been through what you're going through. And even, you know, that kind of therapy you get from actually coaching other people who are at an earlier stage, it's been incredibly useful for me.
Matthias, how about you? Who's your coach or mentor?
So I wasn't invited to this group, so I'm not there. But no, I recently did join YPO, and so I'm at the beginning of that. But I met some very good people there, so that might turn out to be quite useful. But I mentioned some of the people that I usually invest in, and these are a lot more experienced investors than me. We didn't kind of shake hands and sign a contract that they are mentors, but I would consider them. Also, you know, other people, successful entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs. It's really hard to be an entrepreneur. It's much easier to be a VC.
It's true.
You know, it's, as I said, you know, the entrepreneurs put a brave face to the investors, but you know, when you get to know the entrepreneurs, it's a really hard choice, a life choice, and obviously rewarding on many levels, but very hard. So that brings a lot of learning. So other entrepreneurs, a lot more than other investors, I would say.
Okay. I'm just browsing through the questions, and there's one here regarding you, David, about were you thinking about becoming a label at some point, or not really?
So it's actually a question I get asked a lot. Pirate Studio's stance is always to remain on the side of the artist. And as much as I've battled with the potential of becoming a label, I feel that if we became a label, 2 things would happen. One, we would end up upsetting artists, as labels always do, because we're physically taking something from them, and not all artists get out of a label what they want from it. Number 2, we would probably end up pigeonholing ourselves in terms of genres, which we don't want to do because we have such a wide breadth of people utilizing Pirate Studios at the moment. And so for us, it's easier potentially to spot the artists and then maybe pass those leads on to the companies who are already doing labels, booking agencies, management, and do it that way and leave it to the people who know what they're doing.
Okay. And while you're on it, tell us about, is Pirate embracing blockchain for distribution and royalties?
Pirate embracing blockchain?
That's a good question.
It's a really good question. No, I mean,
not yet.
There are no
Not
royalties. We take no percentage of our artists. So all the artists that we develop and all the artists we help, we do it purely for, you know, the press we get off the back of it to promote the studios. So at the moment, there's no royalties. We give it all to the artists. All the content they record in our studios, it's all theirs.
Okay. What I want to know, gentlemen, is are there any things which you did in the past, and if you were to start again, you would not do? Any mistakes which you did, which you thought, in retrospect, is something which you could have avoided? What do you think, David?
Is this specifically aimed at me or Matthias as well? I might need
both of you.
This is both of it. I might actually let Matthias start with this one so I can have a think on this.
If he's ready.
Professionally, I presume. Yeah.
Professionally.
I think it's annoying, but you know, I really do believe that everything bad is, you know, it's good for something else, and you know, I feel incredibly lucky where I am right now. So I would not want to upset the universe to do something different. I'm very happy. So, yeah.
No mistakes?
Nothing.
Ever?
I have made loads of mistakes.
Okay.
Loads of mistakes, but I wouldn't change anything.
Okay.
Okay. What mistakes I've made? I think when you are young, or unexperienced investor, you don't realize that really what VC is about is to help the entrepreneurs and to actually with the really good deals. It's about them choosing you rather than you choosing them.
Yeah.
And it's a very it's a balance. Obviously, you have to do your research and you have to be convinced in the investment you're going to do, but you have to do it in a way. And I guess, when I was less experienced, I would, you can sometimes, as an investor, you think like, oh, I'm here to choose, am I investing or not? And so I guess when I was younger, I made that.
Okay.
And I think I would say to anyone to really approach it differently.
To rephrase the question, would you give any 1-2 tips to upcoming entrepreneurs? Because you must see a lot of companies coming to see you and pitch to you. What are the biggest mistakes they do, and how do you advise them to behave when they come and speak to someone like you?
I mean, obviously, there's so many ingredients you need to be success, and that's why the success only happens for a small percentage of people.
And what are the warning signs you see when people come and you immediately know this is not something which I would invest in?
It's hard to say something immediately, to be honest, because a lot of times you start with something and you're not sure because that person might not be the best salesperson, but that doesn't mean that you don't go away and you're blown away. So it's nothing. It's very important not to be sort of take it on the first 10 minutes of presentation or anything. But I think what I'm looking for is really when you see that the business model is good, that it makes sense, the vision can be big. Then it's very, very much about the people. And I think the number one thing that entrepreneurs to succeed have is resilience, because it's never going to go just like this. You're always going to change the strategy, you're always going to have to adjust to some blows, and it's very important that you're resilient and just keep going. So there's no obviously ultimate test for that, and maybe there is some psychometric, but I think that's important to believe that person is going to really wants it and deeply wants it, and that they will really do it.
Yeah, David, when you were grinding the company and fighting through all the first mistakes, did you ever have a point where you just wanted to give up and just forget all about it, or you just kept going, like Matthias is saying, and be resilient?
So just to come back to the previous question, to be fair, on reflection on that, there is one thing that I suppose if I was to give advice to any entrepreneurs now that I would like to share. Matthias, you might want to cover your ears for this one. But when the money comes in, and you get that wave of excitement, and suddenly, the relief of having money in the bank and being able to spend again. Yeah. And you get all of these ideas, and suddenly everything becomes possible again because there's money in the bank. And you're just thinking, I can finally try this idea, I can try this idea, I can try this idea. You know what? When you do that, 5 out of those 6 ideas you will pursue so far, but actually they'll end up dropping away. And just that solid idea you had at the beginning that you wanted to explore and really push on, that really should be the focus. And so actually, when the money comes in, it's so tempting just to splurge and go and try and do everything. But actually what I would advise is just take some time, in a way, actually tell the investors, I'm taking 2-3 months just to sit back, to reflect, to properly work out my focus and my goals here. And then I'm going to go for 1-2 serious things, and I'm just going to plow all the money into that, because there's definitely disadvantages to going for everything.
Yeah. How far do you want to take it? What's the big vision for Pirate Studios?
So the concept, as far as I'm aware, and as far as I've researched, does not exist in the world at the moment. So for me personally, my ambition is to take this concept worldwide. I'm very lucky in that the business that we've created is helping musicians. It's making music more affordable and music more accessible. And so if we can do that for musicians all over the world, that would be a dream come true for me.
Okay. Matthias, in your VC career, what's the next big step? Do you still want to keep raising funds and investing in companies like Pirate? Or what keeps you on your toes? You're doing it for almost 10 years now. What keeps you excited about this industry?
It's very simple, because this is, for me and you know, for almost everyone, it is super exciting industry, because you get to listen to all the people who come up with new concepts, and you're always on the forefront of what is happening in the world. So it's very difficult to get tired of it. You know, it's not some kind of investment banking. It's not some kind of investing in liquid stocks where you it's very technical. This is your first money. You know, on average, I think it's like 7.3 years from investing to exit on average in venture. You know, it's a long journey. You have to be ready for it, but you know, you get to work with people from very early stage. And our ambition is not to kind of grow our AUM as, you know, as far as we can, and just, you know, that's not the ambition. We want to be, you know, there's a bunch of funds that basically just only raise the amount that they think that they really deploy, and deploy in a good way. We want to stay to be truly early stage investors, not concept all the time. You know, it's really Series A plus or minus, Series B, late seed, that's fine. But we want to be there, and you know, it's exciting. So we get to know all the time new companies, new concepts, like the Oh My Green, what I mentioned today. You know, it was like, wow, this is really cool concept, disrupting huge industry that no one has done anything, and build it all completely on a tech stack from beginning. Yeah, so it's always something exciting.
I agree. I think business model-wise, it's very similar to Eventbrite, which is now going public. I think you have a very good and long way to go to help those musicians and the industry. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us your thoughts. My last question to both of you is, how can we help you?
As in, how can yourselves...
How can us,
or everyone here,
or
just go and book a rehearsal studio? That'd be great. Yeah. Fulfill
quick,
your ambitions of being a DJ, a producer, a member of a band. No, I mean, you know, if you guys want to find out about what's happening in terms of the up and coming bands, DJs, producers, know, you know, who's going to be big in 2 years' time, then go and check out our social media. Go and see all the bands who are coming through, all the grassroots musicians who are plugging away at the moment, getting their music out there, because there's some amazing bands that haven't been discovered yet, but will be.
That's true. Okay. Matthias, how can we help you?
Well, I think as a startup grind, you guys have expanded to, I don't know how many cities are you in?
500.
500 cities. So as we are going, and our ambition is to be everywhere in the world, I guess, you know, I'm sure there's a network effect there that you guys can help with. So
happy to introduce you to our
that's something
local
I thought that was probably interesting.
Okay, we'll do that. Now, please join me in welcoming on this note, on thanking Matthias and David.
Thank you, Marian, for hosting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.